You're still watching The Conversation right here on News Central Television. I am Chiwete Onyema. Today in international justice, a Belgian court has reopened a pivotal chapter in the history of decolonization, revisiting the 1961 assassination of Congolese independence leader Patrice Lumumba. Now, decades after his killing, the only surviving accused former Belgian official is now facing renewed scrutiny as Lumumba's family pursues legal reckoning for what they describe as colonial complicity. Now, joining us to have this conversation is Executive Director, Action for Solidarity Rights, Yassin Tusingwire. Thank you so much for joining us, Yassin.
Thank you, Chiwete.
All right, let's get straight into it now. What does the reopening of Lumumba's case signify for Belgium's reckoning with its colonial past and also the global perceptions of European accountability?
Thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you to our listeners for following us. First of all, I would want to put the whole discussion into proper context by understanding who Lumumba is to us Congolese, but also to Africans. First of all, Patrice Lumumba was the first elected Prime Minister of Congo. We consider Patrice Lumumba as an anti-colonial hero. We consider Patrice Lumumba as a Pan-Africanist. And definitely Patrice Lumumba is a martyr. So these four elements defines who we consider as Patrice Lumumba and why his case matters to not only Congolese, but also to Africans in general. First of all, the opening of the case of Patrice Lumumba is not simply a legal moment. I believe it is a moral litmus test for Belgium's past, as well as the present moment, in terms of the relationship that the Belgians have had with the DRC, as well as Africa at large. Definitely, we know that Lumumba was not assassinated by chance, anyway. And Lumumba was not assassinated by just one individual. He was eliminated through a coordinated colonial system that feared African sovereignty. 65 years later, justice cannot mean prosecuting one last standing individual, who is a Ken Davino. We know that the assassination of Lumumba was planned by institutions, enabled, and so many structures benefited from the crime. And we believe that's why perhaps this opening of this case zeroes down to one surviving individual. We believe, personally, I think this is simply to benefit the state institutions that participated in the assassination of Lumumba, of course, with the intention of definitely avoiding accountability.
All right, I have to butt in here, Yassin. Apologies for that, but right now we're being joined by Serge Sivya, who's an activist for LUCHA RDC. Thank you so much, Serge, for joining us. I'd like to ask you, of course, bringing you into the conversation now, how might this judicial review influence international norms on prosecuting alleged colonial-era crimes long after they have occurred?
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here. I think that this case, even if it's a case of a single man, it's an opportunity for us, especially as Congolese, but us as Africans, to point out the responsibility of the Europe in general, the responsibility of Belgium in particular, on all the crimes that they did on the continent and in Congo. And I think that through this case, it will be, this is a chance that we have as Africans
All right, looks like we have an issue with Serge's audio. We're hoping that he'll be able to resolve it, and when you can continue, or you can join us back on this conversation. But let me come back to you now, Yassin. To what extent does this case, challenge conventional limitations, around historical atrocities?
Yeah, first of all, 65 years delay is just deliberate. We must first of all appreciate that, of course, international crimes have no statutory limitations. Therefore, continuation of the case has some merits in it. But of course, we are very worried that the case that focuses on an individual, when it was actually committed by institutions of the state, it remains really wanting, because we don't see the good faith. We don't see the justice in its real essence. We see simply Belgian the government trying basically to front one man, one person, as if to claim that once this person is sentenced, or he might even die before he's held accountable, that means that justice will be served. And I think this is where we are. We are not really producing a good jurisprudence for the future, but also for holding accountable colonial crimes that were committed. And we feel like this is really a pain that is going to be continuous. Two, I think that this case has been actually mostly left to the family of Patrice Lumumba. As I mentioned in my introduction, this case should not really be a one person or a one family issue. It's not a matter of one family. It's not a case of one individual targeting one individual. So we think that the critical legal jurisprudence that should be served, we don't see it really being served. And I think this may not really bring the justice that we would desire to see. The moral responsibility from the Belgian government makes sense, but it does not really satisfy the legal merits. And we feel like this would be a continuous system of colonial, neo-colonial kind of manipulation. I feel like Africans will not really benefit from this kind of proceedings.
All right, Yassin, how credible and consequential is the evidence, including, documentary archives, a testimony that links Belgian officials to Lumumba's murder?
A lot has been documented. First of all, just recently on 20th June 2022, as part of the moral responsibility, we saw Belgians bringing the tools of Patrice Lumumba. Of course, this tooth was not kept at Etienne's Davignon's home. It was kept by the state. But there is also a lot of documented evidence. Of course, there is no one who has even refuted that. The only challenge is that the choice has only been made to pursue only one individual, of course, because the others died. And of course, even when you look at the merits of the case, what is Etienne being accused of? Because in the indictment, we even don't see murder. We don't see assassination. But Patrice Lumumba is dead. He was killed. He was assassinated. So what about this other part where, that criminal responsibility that actually includes also assassination and murder? Who is responsible for that? Why is this Etienne not being held accountable for that? You see, it was a high, heinous, planned crime that was actually committed in collaboration with state agents in Kinshasa, as well as the Belgian government. It's, of course, the libraries, there are a lot of evidence to that, of course. This requires simply to dig in, to open up the files. Otherwise, it's not a dispute of whether it is true that maybe there is no evidence. Otherwise, why was the government of the region, apologizing for those crimes? Apology does not really equate to legal responsibility.
Now, what implications does the label war crimes have for this case, especially in an era of, involving international criminal law?
The fact that only one individual, Etienne, has been identified is being prosecuted implies that once he is sentenced or once he is found guilty, then the case ends with him. That's the whole thing. This is where responsibility and accountability becomes a very, quite challenging because, definitely Etienne is like Boukem said, he's like, he's the one who is going to answer for the crimes committed by all others. And of course, this is not justice. Of course, to the family of Patrice Lumumba, they will be relieved. They will be, they will appreciate. But sincerely, should we believe that this is how this case should really be handled? Should it be a matter of Patrice Lumumba's family, or it should have even been a matter that really concerns not only the state, but also all of us inclusive? Not only even Congo, but also the Africans in general. So I think it will be good to have that precedence, just in case Etienne is convicted and is sentenced, maybe is found guilty. But we feel like it does not really address the colonial crimes that we witnessed, which of course have had impact on all our lives since then, because what is happening in the Congo. Belgian's hand has always been there, and we are very unfortunate to see that, again, Belgian is always involved in whatever is happening. So where is the moral standing of the Belgians in terms of the history of Congo, in terms of where we stand, in terms of the ongoing conflicts in the Congo? Do they really have the legal and moral authority to comment on whatever is happening in the Congo? In my opinion, of course, they shouldn't, unless they show goodwill to pursue and deliver justice as we know it should be served.
All right, I've just been informed that Serge Sivya has joined us. I'm hoping his audio is better now. Serge, can you hear me? I'm hoping you can. Given that the sole surviving accused is in his 90s, how does this age intersect with, global concerns about justice delayed versus justice denied?
Yes, I think that even after 65 years, it is possible that the truth may come out because this is about a historical justice. Here we want to make sure that Belgium recognizes its responsibility in this crime, and that is the only opportunity we have. And I think that also, as it was said here, the family can finally mourn, because it is not possible to mourn your beloved if the truth have never been said, if the dignity has never been there, and it's not possible to be healed from that wound if the truth is not officially said. And that is the only important thing that I think we can take from the case. But we would like to see also that Europe in general is held accountable for the crimes that they did in the colonial time. I think that is how I analyze the situation.
Now, talking about Lumumba's family, how has Lumumba's descendants framed their pursuit of this case beyond, personal closure as part of a broader struggle against impunity? I'm still going to stick. This question is still to you, Serge.
Yes, the thing is actually the case is a Congolese case, first of all, but we can see that the children of Lumumba are the ones who are on the front line, and unfortunately they are becoming old. The grandsons and the granddaughters are taking the flag. And I think it is thanks to them that this case came out. But I don't think that as DRC we have just we did too much, but the family did it. And actually, I think that this is a process of healing from the loss of their beloved. And us as Congolese, we need to seize this opportunity to then go even far from a single case of the assassination of our hero to a responsibility that the entire Europe has in the history.
Let me come to you now, Yassin. What role does the symbolic return of Lumumba's tooth play in the narrative of historical redress and also collective memory?
It's good, it's symbolic, it is positive because one, Belgian acknowledged that they had this responsibility, but from a moral standpoint, and of course, there were a lot of, suspicion, a lot of, uncertainty, a lot of ambiguity around, the circumstances, the heinous way in which Lumumba was assassinated, So basically returning Lumumba's tooth was actually very positive. It was positive. It was really symbolic because it also reassured Congolese and the Africans, as well as the family of Patrice Lumumba, that of course Belgian recognized this. From a moral standpoint, it really communicated with strength and depth in terms of how Belgian actually, acknowledged, that was a sign of acknowledgement. Of course, that is from the moral standpoint, but from the legal perspective, we felt that from there, they should have shown another will and another interest to really, show the level of responsibility, criminal responsibility. There are many ways of how they could have done it in a way that Congolese Africans feel like actually Belgium is very serious, is very considerate in terms of the past that were committed in the Congo. Of course, definitely including the assassination of Patrice Lumumba.
All right, let me ask you, how might this case, recalibrate diplomatic relations, especially between Belgium and the Democratic Republic of Congo? I'm still asking you the question, Yassin.
Of course, Belgium has always had a positive relationship with Congo in many ways. There are a lot of things they work together on so many things, and I think I don't see really much from that symbolic, event that took place in 2022. Belgium supports Congo in many ways. They work together in many ways. So I would not really attach. There are so many interests, of course, that Belgium has in Congo, and definitely vice versa. And the diplomatic relationship is built on so many grounds. And I feel like it would not be fair to zero it down on only one that symbolic event. But of course, it means a lot in terms of how the Tshisekedi government in Kinshasa has, was able to really, because around 62 years since the assassination of Lumumba, if Belgium was able to bring that tooth in 2022, that means a lot in terms of what was going on, in the background. Maybe it could be, relationships building, and maybe, I don't know. But in my view, it appears like there is a lot that is going on that, in terms of diplomatic relationship, that we cannot only look from that symbolic event.
Let me come back to you now, Serge. In what way does this legal process, intersect with broader African demands for accountability for colonial and Cold War era interventions?
that this case is not only a case of death of someone, of an assassination. It's about the destruction of an entire African political project, because you have to remember that Lumumba was part of a large group, the group of Julius Nyerere, of Kwame Nkrumah, and so on. Killed. It was not only a person who was killed, it was a vision of a united Africa, of a prosperous Africa that was killed, because remember that Lumumba was killed because he was fighting for the dignity of Africa, for the sovereignty of Africa, and also he was killed because he was asking for real independence of Africa. And I think that this is an open way for us activists and Pan-Africanists to make sure that we take advantage of this case to help the European colonialists accountable for the crime. Because today, if you see Congo today, the assassination of Lumumba was like one of the things that held us to what we are today. All the instabilities that we live even today, all the dominations that we are facing in Congo, that the assassination of Lumumba and the assassination actually of other heroes of Africa was the beginning of what we are living. Then this is, I think, an important time for us to reflect on how we are dealing with Europe and to let them understand their responsibility and even to ask for reparations. Great.
Well, let me go back to you, Yassin. How do historical actors, I'm talking state officials, intelligence agencies, and even local collaborators, shape the contemporary framing of this case?
Going on, and I think from my understanding is that this case, we don't see many people taking really interest, the vigor it should have in terms of how, the legal jurisprudence, the academics and the civil society, taking some lessons and maybe contributing. We don't see amicus curiae. We don't see. So basically, I feel like the level of interest in this case seems to have rested upon the family of Patrice Lumumba, which really is, to me, is concerning. But again, I think it is because of the nature of the case and, of course, the limited interest from the state, maybe perhaps, I don't know if I would say the limited interest, but the trend in which the case has taken, it has really, it seems like it has been taken by the events in terms of how the family has dealt with this case. But also the delays, especially if you look at the delay in this case, which is, as I said, is a deliberate delay. It is not really by coincidence. It's not by mistake. It's simply delayed. It is deliberate. So it's difficult really to say, like, to conclude that perhaps there is a lot of, we are learning a lot from the proceeding. We are learning a lot from the case. So basically, we seem to wait to see how and which direction it takes. But in my view, I think I have not seen how different actors are picking interest from this case and taking it as their own case. Even, from different parts of Africa, I would have expected to see a lot of, vigor, a lot of interest, people, institutions, civil society, the academia, legal institutions, the legal minds. I would be really interested to see how they take up this case, but it's not what I have seen so far, and perhaps I will need to educate myself about it.
Let me come back to you now, Serge. How might this case influence, other colonial powers' willingness to confront their own contested past?
Yeah, unfortunately, we are not sure if Europe and the colonialists in general will be ready to take the responsibility. But yeah, if they were serious about themselves, then this would have been an opportunity for them to understand that they need to acknowledge their role, and as Yassin said, not only about apologies, speeches, but accept the legal responsibility and act accordingly. And by saying act accordingly, I think of reparations, as I said. Reparations that may be symbolic, that may be financial, that may be everything. And that would have been like to show their will of really coming with justice, and without justice it will be difficult to build relationships that are very strong, that are built on the equality as countries. That is what I think.
Let me go back to you now, Yassin. It has taken 65 years for this case to be revisited. Do you think justice will be served?
Of course, it will be served partially to the family of Patrice Lumumba, and of course, partially served because they will have picked out one old man and sentenced him or maybe held him accountable. But of course, criminal responsibility will remain at large because this case is not only about the past; it is also about whether colonial crimes are allowed to die naturally, while their consequences remain alive. So basically, it is going to be partially served because in my view, I feel like if this case ends with one elderly man in court and no institutional reckoning, then history will always record it as symbolism, not really justice. So to me, I don't think this is enough. I feel like something's missing.
Let me come to you, Serge. As this unfolds, what questions should global audiences be asking about the relationship between law, morality, historical truth, and even power?
Yeah, I think the first thing to consider here is that the case can officially establish some facts, and it can officially establish responsibilities, pointing out people, pointing out systems and institutions. And I think that this case will help also to break the long silence, the long institutional silence that we have seen these 6 decades. And yeah, that is why I think that the case can help for that. But as I said, I am not sure if they are ready to face the reality and to accept it. But yeah, let us see what it will bring.
All right, gentlemen, just before I let you, or before we end this conversation, in 30 seconds each, can you guys just give me your final thoughts? I'll start with you, Yassin.
First of all, I think we want really all those that have a colonial legacy to really act with civility, because we feel like, we believe that justice is possible, and there is no shame in accepting and, of course, acknowledging and allowing to be held accountable, and then we move on a proper track. I think that would really we want them to approach these issues, colonial leadership, with civility.
All right. How about, let's hear from you, Serge, your final thoughts.
Yeah, my final thought is that Lumumba was not killed by a single man. Lumumba was killed by a system. And for me, instead of judging a single man, it is the system that should be held.
Looks like we have, unfortunately, we have an issue with Serge's audio. But if you're just joining us, I've been having a conversation with Executive Director, Action for Solidarity Rights, Yassin Tusingwire, and activist LUCHA RDC, Serge Sivya. Gentlemen, thank you so much for having this conversation with us. Now, as this historic review unfolds, the questions about accountability, memory, and the legacy of colonialism are once again at the forefront. Now, whether Belgium's justice system can bridge a 6-decade gap to deliver truth, and perhaps no less a measure of justice, remains a test not just of law, but of historical conscience. And that's all for today on The Conversation. Catch up on missed episodes on our News Central TV YouTube channel. You can also watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Till I come your way again, I am Chiwata Onyema.